Hey, welcome to the Do Good Work podcast. Today we're talking to Dr. Jonathan Baktari. Dr. Baktari is the CEO of E7 Health and U.S. Drug Test Centers. He brings over 20 years of clinical, administrative, and entrepreneurial experience and is a triple board certified physician with specialties in internal medicine, pulmonary, and critical care medicine. He was formerly the medical director of the Valley Health Systems, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Culinary Health Fund. He's also served in clinical faculty for several medical schools, including the University of Nevada and Touro University. And he is on a mission to improve healthcare through technology. Dr. Baktari, it's a pleasure and honor to have you on.
Thank you so much. What an honor to be on myself. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be fun because we had a really interested pre-chat, but so we were discussing, and actually we should be a little transparent with what we discussed, but when we're growing companies or leading companies or building businesses, the puzzle pieces or the Lego pieces aren't complex. I think we make it more complex than we need to be. It's not easy at all. It does require a significant amount of focus, attention, and effort. However, I think one of the key elements, maybe it's like the life force or the lifeblood of any organization, is the alignment of our people, our teams, their personal alignment where they are in life, their alignment to the core cause that your business or solution is solving, and the alignment with leadership and ensuring that we can keep that consistency over time. I'd love to know, with your expertise, how do we keep that alignment within ourselves, within our teams, within our organizations, not only for the short term as we get over a difficult quarter or we get over a difficult month, but for years? I'd love to get
Yeah.
your insights.
To answer that question really has to do where the company or organization is in its evolution in terms of its growth. So obviously a startup versus a moderate or mid-size or versus a large scale, the approach has got to be completely different. And I'll tell you why. This is the big elephant in the room that nobody ever talks about. Your ability to get a team that's aligned with you or with each other is almost directly correlated with the amount of redundancy you have in the organization. So if you have 900 accountants in your CPA firm and you're trying to get somebody and one particular person aligned with you and you're coaching them and mentoring them, their ability to digest or see the big picture often really is indirectly correlated to the redundancy. So if there's 899 other accountants and you're like, there's one that really has potential and you really want to maybe take them to the next level, that's a different conversation than if you have one accountant in your company and you want to bring them in and motivate them. Because when you try to align people and get them to see the long-term picture of how they could benefit by being aligned, that conversation is completely different depending on how redundant that they are in their organization. And believe it or not, this contrary to what you would think, the more redundancy you have, the more you have the ability to speak freely, frankly. But if you're walking on tiptoes, so let's say you want to have a conversation with a team member, but they are a critical member of your team, that your business would fall apart tomorrow morning. So let's say you don't word it perfectly. You just say something. Oh, whoa. And I'll just give you a great example. I had somebody who I was bringing in. I really thought that they had a lot of potential. And I often refer to them, what was your last job? And they said, I did some bartending before. And I said, oh, you know what? So here's the thing. When you're a bartender, obviously you want to make people happy, but you're not trying to make the bar have 5 more bars. You just want to do a good job. But in our organization, we want you to grow our stock price. You really have the capacity if you do amazing work, and you could actually move the needle forward where you may not have that opportunity in a bar as a bartender, to move the needle forward a lot necessarily. And the person, oh, wow, I was really insulted because you brought up the bartender thing. I think that was just random because that's what they happen to do. But you don't know when you're motivating someone and you're trying to give them these examples where they're going to. But if there was 100 people in that position, you're not walking on eggshells saying, I got to pick just the right words, because if I'm trying to move this person forward so they can benefit financially, they can grow. But what happens if they don't take it the right way? So I think when I've talked to other leaders, their ability to coach, mentor, and help the person grow financially even is often limited by how redundant they're, but that's just one thing. So when to answer your question, that conversation is really different if you have only 5 people in your organization and you think one person is not as dialed in as you'd want them. How do you get there? But you only have 5 people in your organization. I think people have different conversations depending on how redundant that person's position is.
It's really interesting. I haven't heard that before, but it brings a really rich perspective because my experience is the small business sub 1,000 teams. Some team members are much more critical. And you're right. This is going to sound very cliche, but everything is almost like a sales conversation. It's creating
Yeah.
influence, creating buy in, ensuring that we're motivating in the right ways. But it's in another way, it's painting a future vision together and aligning to
Right.
that. The key thing with buy in, though, I mean, there's different motivations and reasons for different individuals. So I think the first step, like what you're really getting to, is that alignment and buy-in within your team in order to do it right is actually by design. What's your
Mhm.
size of company? What's your leadership
Yeah.
style? So that's by design, and I think we can understand that. But when we dive into truly creating buy-in, I think
Right.
there could be a I don't want to say formula, but like a framework in where you can create that environment from as a leader or a CEO, create
Right.
that environment and foster an environment for buy-in. And I know you have
Yeah.
extensive experience in that. I would like to.
Yeah. Okay. So the other thing, yeah, by the way, but one more thing to design, because besides the redundancy, there's another thing that impacts how you present it. Okay. And I know you want to go on to that, and I'm more than happy to do it. But let me share with you one other
Yeah,
thing
of course.
that the other thing is the actual count. So let's say you have 10 people in an organization and 9 people or 8 people are clocking in and out. Okay. And you put a new person in that organization, they will gravitate towards the majority and say that's what's expected here. And so when you're having a talk with them, oh, you come on, but then they look around. The example I give is, imagine you gave me a job at the post office tomorrow, right? And
Mhm.
and first week at the post office, I'm like, guys, listen, I have some ideas. We can revolutionize how this mail goes through here, and we'll cut out our work. It will be more efficient. They'd be like, hey, slow down, buddy. We're all here just to get, put in our work. Again, I'm not trying to minimize postal workers. We got a retirement benefits. We've got a union. We're just here to move. Don't shake the world. Don't light the world on fire, because the majority of people are maybe in that mode. Again, I'm not trying to,
Mm.
but so versus if you go into an organization where 9 of the people are heavily vested and you put a new person in there, they're going to be the outlier if they're trying to clock in and out and never do anything above and beyond. So whether when you're asking a person, and I think where we're going to get to is how do you get to someone to understand if they go above and beyond, that's going to be good for them. And
Mm.
also you have to be in an organization that rewards people who go above and beyond. But first you have to take a look at your organization. Are the majority of people clocking in and out, or are the majority of people vested? And because when you put a new person in there, it's going to be very hard to
To
get
change the
them
status quo.
right. So slowly what you have to do then is it's the United States Senate. You got to win the majority.
Mm.
Okay. If you're in the majority, it's a lot easier to pass legislation. If you're in the minority and you're trying to pass legislation, it's going to be an uphill battle. So I think those are the two things: redundancy, and is the majority of the other people clocked dialed in. Because again, that's going to be a different conversation if the majority of your organization, or whatever you want to call it, the preponderance, 50, 60, whatever. So if I have 90% of my staff or people or partners, we call them, if they're all dialed in, it's a lot easier to put someone in there and get them to be bought in, because they're going to look around and say, oh my gosh.
What's the average
Hey,
doing? Yeah. One thing that I mentioned that I stayed, and it kind of falls into line here, is that you don't want to optimize for the status quo, because if you
yeah,
optimize for the status quo, it could be the decline.
right,
So this is brilliant because then we got to look, what is the status quo within your organization? Is
right,
it stagnant? Is it a driver organization? Like people who are motivated, driven, they're fire. There's some fire inside of them that they need to like
right.
execute at their best. Or are they, let's keep things easy? And that's all obviously by design. I'd love to get your experience. How do you assess, let's say right now, the status quo is not where you need it to be. You need to up the amplify the team. How would you look into that scenario and kind of shake things up in a positive way to help raise the tide?
That's a tough one because I think if you talk to any CEO that's tried to do that, at some level, you're going to have an honest conversation with people who are not fully dialed in and just have that honest conversation. Just say, look, this is what we're looking to grow. And is this something you'd be interested in? But let me tell you, if you do that, here's the upside. As we grow, you're going to grow. As our revenues grow, your revenues grow. So you actually become a co-owner in it. But then, yeah, if they say, look, I'm just at a stage in my life where I just want to clock in and out, I'm going to do a good job, but I just want to clock in and out. I'm not going to do anything above and beyond. They just say, I hear that. I respect that. And honestly, Raul, if I could be honest with you, there were stages in my life when I was younger. I just wanted to, I did a great job, but I just wanted to clock in and out. I had other priorities. Something else was going on. So I get that. There's no harm in that. And if you really think of 98% or 90% of jobs in the United States, that's all the boss wants you to do, right? If I get a job in Macy's shirt department, there Macy's doesn't want me to change Macy's stock price, right? What do they want me to do? Be nice to the customers, sell some shirts, be nice to the co-employees, be there on time and leave on time and make a few sales. And they're not expecting you. Or
Mhm.
if I'm the 500th nurse in a hospital, they're not they want that nurse to treat the patients kindly, be nice, but they're not asking them to change the stock price or double the revenue of the hospital. So I think the question really is when you have a startup and you're not a hospital with 500 nurses and you're not Macy's with 50,000 employees. And they have to understand they're not at Macy's and I don't know why I'm picking on Macy's, but whatever big corporation. So if you get a job at a casino or any major company, you're more of a cog in the wheel. They want you to be a nice cog. They want you to,
Yeah.
so you have to first go to them and say, this is not that organization. Are you
Mm.
okay with that? But if you are, here's the upside. Because at Macy's, yeah, maybe you could work your way up, whatever. But here, the sky's the limit where you can grow. If we 10x our revenues, and you're part of the reason why we 10x our revenues, I promise you, your life will be different.
Getting that buy no, 100% because and I love that differentiator, and it is a truth, right? Being a piece of a larger machine or being a fire or a fuel that grows small businesses to where they need to be. But you're right, setting the expectations first and also making sure that we're all aligned on this is the type of company we're in. We're not this kind of company. And these are the expectations. And then giving the opportunity to step up if that's their desire or to step out and being in a place of empowering their next move is typically how I prefer to lead. On
Right.
the
If I can add to that, I think a lot of people, the mistake they make is they go into someone and say, I need you to be in and I need you to light this place on fire, but they don't adequately describe why. Because
Mhm.
if someone came to me and said, hey, I need you to give above and beyond, I'm not asking you to work more than 40 hours a week, but when during those 40 hours, I want you to light the place on fire. And they're like, well, why would I do that when I could get a job at Macy's? So if you don't delineate, you can't just make the ask without saying what the reward is. Because all things being equal, why should I mean that I would say that. Why should I? You need to do a convincing job of, hey, if we 10x our revenue and you're part of the reason why that happened, believe me, you'll have to take a pay cut to go anywhere else and your future will be bright and you could parlay this into something huge. So I think what a lot of leaders forget to do is they make the ask, but they don't say, okay, don't treat this place like Macy's or maybe your last job. And then they stop at that. No, just say, but if you do, your upside is endless professionally and financially. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, you leave the person hanging. You're like, they go home and say, "Hey, my boss is asking me to light the place on fire, but I don't
But
know,
why
my
why
last
should I care? What's in it for me?
the vague thing that might be good for me." No, you got to say, "Listen, your upside is endless." But go ahead.
No, you're completely right. So it's a both not just setting the expectation, but even having a compensation package, like written compensation or bonus plan structure or whatever structure you want to set up, where there is weight to that word. You can't just say, trust me and I'll pay you this dividend. It's more about it's part of your comp package and
Eh,
explaining how it works, how they can grow, why it's in it for them. But you're completely right. Some and maybe even me, young leadership, when I was starting off, like I would do the bow and arrow approach. I would come and address a situation, but forget the other part of the component, saying, here is the future that we're painting together. Here's how you can play a part of that
Mm.
future and why it's important. And I've learned that obviously over the years, but I can completely resonate with both ends. To flip the conversation and kind of go in a different direction, I'm really interested to learn about what's exciting in your world in terms of creating alignment, creating buy-in, and sharing that expertise with the current work that you're doing? I'd love to kinda highlight that.
What we're currently working on is when we identify people who have buy-in, and I call them owners, when we have owners that buy, then it's our job to give them the skill sets because enthusiasm and energy will only take you so far. Oh, I love this company. I want this place to, but we have to then give them additional skills to get them to act on their enthusiasm. So what we've done is create a lot of internal courses and a lot of internal training to help them grow professionally, whether that's in the sales process, vendor management. We teach them a lot about how to approach a lot of our people that we work with, our partners, and it's how to speak, I call in win-win tone. Almost everybody that we work with, we view it as a partnership. And we said, listen, if we work together and this goes well, here's how you're going to win. Here's how we're going to win. And I work with my staff and we do a lot of work on this is to understand that our goal is not to just at any cost, at any way grow revenue, but one to do it ethically, compliantly, but also make sure whoever we work with wins. Because what we have found is if the people we work with win, they're going to want to work with us more. And that's a balancing act between doing that and having someone take advantage of your partnership. So I get
Oh, yeah.
that. But I think if you develop a reputation, even within internally, that we're a win-win organization, that's going to pay dividends down the road.
No, I love that. And then with the education that you're doing, are you doing that just internally for your companies right now? Or is there also like a thought leadership piece on that, how other companies can mimic that model?
Yeah, so I think we're doing two things. That's a lot. That's a request that we get a lot in my podcast, Baktari MD. I know our first year we spent working on just topics of the inside scoop on healthcare and other organizations. But I think this year, season two, we're going to focus more on some disclosing or conveying some of that strategy. We're coming up, we have an internal course that we've grown for the past 10 years on how to deal with the clients and phone calls. It's a sales kind of phone skills course that actually has very little to do with sales, but we call it a sales course. It just teaches you how to build value and listen and help people. That's coming out in Kajabi in about, I think, 2, 3. And so and then that's one of multiple courses that we have internally that we're going to offer other companies to help them grow. So I think that's the first course out of the box, as well as our podcast season two. We're going to focus on that on this season.
It's exciting. It's pretty cool to be able to decentralize that knowledge and empower other companies to do so. With the current companies that you're running, again, just out of curiosity, what's the new frontier that you're seeing and the challenges that you're helping solve in this world?
Both of our companies are really technology companies disguised as a healthcare company and a drug testing company, but we're launching with US Drug Test Centers, which is our nationwide drug testing company. We're actually launching our own platform before other companies in our situation would be using third-party platforms to run their business. It's, if I can make an analogy, it's like using Salesforce for your CRM versus writing your own CRM. So most people in our industry use other platforms, 2, 3 main platforms to nationwide drug testing. And what we're doing is we're using our own platform and we're going to offer that to other companies to be able to hop on to our platform. I'm sure Salesforce internally uses Salesforce as their CRM of clients. Think of it like that. So we're currently using our own platform, but we're the first client, as it were. So we're going to let other companies manage their entire drug testing programs. Companies and other organizations use our technology to manage nationwide drug testing. And
Huge.
yeah, that is huge. So we're really excited. We're going to probably roll that out in Q1, but we're in the finishing stages of integrating with 4 or 5 major labs and other partners so we can offer that. So we're excited about that in Q1.
That's really cool. We're gonna have to get you back on to see how that launch goes and how the that's a really cool project. I'm excited for you. For all the listeners out there, Dr. Baktari, what's the best place for people to go to, one, thank you for this podcast episode, and two, learn more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah, I think our best place is our YouTube channel, Baktari MD, as well as LinkedIn. You can look me up, Jonathan Baktari, and we're on Twitter and pretty much all the social media. On LinkedIn, of course, you can message me. And yeah, feel free to watch or listen to our podcast, Baktari MD. We're launching season 2 in a couple of weeks, but we have a lot of great stuff already, a lot of material content. And also we have blogs and stuff at baktarimd.com, which is my website, which has a lot of our content, interviews, blogs of previous media pieces that we've been on. So baktarimd.com is our website that you can just see all our content in one place.
No, I love it. I'll put all those links in the show notes. And Dr. Baktari, again, it's an honor. Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you found value in today's podcast, please consider sharing this with someone that you believe could also benefit from this episode. You never know, you may be the catalyst that opens them up to a new way of operating their business and experiencing life. As always, it's an honor to be a small part of your journey. This is Raul Hernandez. Do good work.